Hey, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. I'm so glad you could join me as we wind down, the practical aspects of the season, but the memories are still there. In fact, thank you, Mark and John and Joe for the great photos of your last day in my text messages. And thank you all if you sent something like that to our Facebook page. It really does put a capper on this season. But that's just a start. We're going to take a look at some really interesting things. But first, we're going to talk to Jon Hubble. He's an Orvis endorsed Texas bird hunting guide and outfitter, and he's got hints for us on everything from comportment in the field to actually working your dogs and, bird hunting. Yeah, we'll get some great advice from a guy whose boots are on the ground a lot more frequently than mine or yours, probably. So stick around for some practical and some philosophical advice there. And then, speaking of advice, our Handle It segment this week, I'm working on a number of things that might be of use to you, including, a grooming tip. No, not for you, although I hope you do that once in a while. This will be for your dog, and it may just save you a trip to the vet. It's all coming up on the Upland Nation podcast, so stay tuned here. It's made possible by landtrust.com, ESPAmerica.com, Purina's Pro Plan Sport Dog Food, MidwayUSA.com, TrulockChokes Tubes, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, Pointer Shotguns, and Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products. The thaw has begun, and from what I can gather out there anywhere in the country, while we're getting about here and there, at least the really ugly weather we had is gone for a while. That's as close as I'll come to a prediction. Also trying to plan ahead. This is my New Year's resolutions included, shooting better, but that's a constant. And then also getting the pigeons a lot more work on Flick's behalf this training season. So they've got a new feeder, a new waterer, so they can be taken care of even when I go on the road, and that'll be coming really handy next hunting season. Bigger feeder, bigger waterer. I can walk away for weeks at a time. At least that's the theory. I'll keep you posted. How about you? I asked, I love the answers you give. I posted on social media a picture of an intact, it may as well have been what they call a European mount that I found on a pheasant hunt a couple years back. It's just a 2-point muley, but the skull and the antlers are completely and totally bleached white. So it was probably pretty old by the time I found it. It's now got a place of honor in my office, and I love it for all sorts of reasons. That was a great dog day, and a beautiful hunt as well. So I asked you to show me your pictures. TJ Downs found a little, gravestone, and I found a really interesting one of those too, TJ, just at one of the places where I run my dog. I don't know what's under it, and I don't dare disturb it, but everybody has their reasons. So I get it, and I will honor that. Mike LaRoe found a grouse with no tail feathers. Glenn Ainsworth found an old cavalry howitzer in a certain place that I know extremely well with a certain name that has the number 3 in it, I bet. Yeah, it's still there. You checked again this year, so did I. The reason it's there is you need 1,000 feet of winch cable. And who wants to go to that much trouble? If you're that deep into that country, Glenn, as you well know, you don't want to haul out anything that heavy. Big dead head for Stumble Creek Kennels. Yeah, that looks like quite an impressive elk version of the deer I was describing. Phil Stewart found an old antique wagon, or what was left of it, sitting out there. A dead buck with a cow tag in its ear. Jerry Zeich. Man, I got to see that. A pistol a mile from the Mexican border. Randy Gasta, yeah, I wonder what that had been used for. A geocache, seen a lot of those over the years, Joe Arthur, and kind of fun. That kind of came and went. I remember when GPS first got rolling for civilians, geocaching was a big deal. In fact, I was teaching how to use GPS at a lot of sports shows then, and got deep into the geocaching for a while. I bet there's, even back then, the common wisdom, such as it is, was there's probably a geocache within a couple miles of your house, no matter where you live. Yeah, lots of urban ones, but a lot of rural ones. And if it's a pretty place, for one reason or another, I'll bet you there's a whole bunch of geocaches. They're kind of fun. Look into it. like GeoCaching. That's the sport, such as it is. Okay, Dick Martinson says, this was the coolest on a private ranch. The owner was happy we told him about it, and it is probably one of the earliest versions of a gas pump. The metal pillar with a big pillar-like clear tank on the top. Yeah, I bet he was glad to see that. That, even in that condition, it's probably eminently saleable, or just a fascinating thing to put in your living room. An old outhouse in the middle of nowhere, says Rusty Throwshine. I know you're not using it, but that is a hilarious picture. Gordon Vavrick, you were at the bottom of the deep canyon when you found that bighorn skull. Yeah, the only problem with finding that is you got to cart it all the way up to the top of the canyon. Yes. Dick Martinson, that's got to be a big mule shoe. It's way too big for anything short of a Clydesdale, so I'm not surprised, and good on you. Although, once again, that's about 3 chuckers worth of weight in your vest. Some fascinating. Have you ever found a guzzler? I've found some guzzlers in places where I thought you had to be nuts to haul in the materials and build it. And God bless you if you were one of those guys who did it. And then I learned many, many, many years ago at a Nevada Chucker Foundation conference banquet that they use helicopters. So they'll put a crew and all the gear onto a helicopter and drop it somewhere, and those guys will work at it all day, all volunteers, and good job, everybody. They'll build it, and then they'll commute home in their chopper at the end of the day. Beautiful stuff, wonderful thing. Oscar Long, I'm going to open this video. I hope I don't embarrass myself. Can't quite tell yet, but it looks interesting. Let me put it that way. I can't tell if it's a dead pigeon in a cave or something more bizarre. Scott Bissiger, one of my favorite topics, petroglyphs and pictographs. That's a cool one. It is a native hunter mounted on a horse probably, and then being chased by a 3-legged octopus. Hey, my interpretation is as valid as anybody else's. Some really, really cool stuff. Old trucks. Yeah, saguaro cactus. Celia Rausch, thank you. That is hilarious. That is almost a meme in the making. Okay, for lack of a better description, it is a saguaro cactus flipping us the bird. And speaking of birds, Celia, thanks again. You found another, what probably is a memorial, a grave marker with some sort of a bird on it, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. It's there's a metal cross, and then there's a metal cutout of a bird. Can't identify it. It's pretty stylized, but this is why we go. It really is. We talk a good game about dog work, which is the real reason, but then all the other stuff we find, we see, we come up with in our own heads, or our friends make a point of That's what hunting is about, and I sure appreciate your sharing all of that stuff all the time with us. So thank you very much. We are just getting rolling here on the Upland Nation podcast, brought to you in part by Purina, Pro Plan Sport Dog Food. Learn more about the various formulations at ProPlansport.com. You know I'm big on this whole nutrition thing and how it fuels performance in our dogs. Omega-3 fatty acids and glucosamine included in that Pro Plan Sport. That's for joint health and mobility. Yeah, if your dog's getting out of the box a little bit slower in the morning, think about that. And then if they're just not quite on their game all the time, consider that Pro Plan Sport has the right amount of DHA to help nourish brain and vision health. You get more information at ProPlansport.com, Pro Plan Sport Dog Food. Just at the SHOT Show a while back, got to spend a lot of time in the Pointer Shotguns booth. All sorts of exciting things. Finally got to shoulder that 28 gauge over and under in case coloring. Some people say case hardened, case coloring. It's actually the same thing, I believe, most of the time. It's the process they go through to harden the metal, turns it those colors. It's pretty cool, and it shoulders really nicely. And, I heard something interesting, and I'll share more of this down the road. 28s have a better ballistic profile than a 20 in many cases. Now, I'm not going to debate that. It may or may not be true. But anyway, you got your choice at pointershotguns.com. All the gauges, including a 410, all the colors and all the styles. Semi-automatic, over and under, side by side, you name it, they got it. Pointershotguns.com. That's where you start your search for your next shotgun upgrade. Well, I'm here to tell you that all the things on my mind these days, one of them is being somewhere warmer than where I am now, and Jon Hubble is a Texas Orvis endorsed wingshooting guide. His company is called Premier Wingshooting. He's down there in Texas somewhere. John, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast.
Well, thank you, Scott. I appreciate it.
I don't get to talk Texas very often with anybody, and I've of all the states, I've hunted 26 states, but I haven't hunted Texas yet.
Oh my goodness!
So that's my plea for an invitation down the road. Not really, but I would like to go there, and I do hope to learn more about that area, but other things as well. So tell me about Premier Wingshooting and what you guys are doing down there.
Well, Premier Wingshooting, we are a fully operating cattle ranch as well, about 2,900 acres of 95% native grass rolling hills and, some oak mott's here and there. We're located just northwest of Austin by about an hour and a half, just north of Lampasas near a town called Lomita, Texas. So, pretty centrally located to the state. We're pretty proud of the place in that if you get on the website and look at the photographs, they're absolutely photographs of our place.
Yeah.
And it's very reminiscent of Kansas and Nebraska, just big rolling hills. And, it's how the habitat's supposed to be in this area, but it's, due to fire, keeping the fires away, the brush and the trees have grown up, and it's not like that any longer. So we're pretty proud of it because you get to go to Kansas, but not such the drive.
Oh, I love that idea, and I'm glad you pointed out the pictures on your website are actual pictures of your place. Yep. I fell for that once, and it almost cost me, but that's another story for another day. You say it's a fully functioning cattle ranch. What kind of cows you're running, and how do you kind of balance ranching and bird hunting?
Well, so the cattle that are on there are registered Angus cattle, and my business partner on the ranch, that's his main area, and I'm not sure if you're terribly familiar, but stocking rates are such that he was actually the Texas Lone Star Land Steward of the Year a few years back, and maintaining habitat is a big important aspect of what we do. And to be honest with you, cows and birds kind of go hand in hand. They love the grasslands and the prairies, and if you do it right, they work really, really well together. So that's how that balances out. Now, obviously, we've got to deal with, drought conditions and things like that, which everyone does. But, we manage it pretty well. We do a really good job. And in my opinion, I think everyone else that comes out seems to think the same. So it's a proof positive, so to speak.
Well, tell me about the hunting side of things. What are you doing over there? I noticed you had a couple kind of choices, if you want to call it that, so that no matter what kind of hunting somebody wants to do, they have it there.
That's correct. So we have kind of our bread and butter is our typical walk-up hunt, which would be, anywhere from, well, I guess it could be one, but that's generally not the case. One to maybe as many as five, and that's, just kind of a small private group. Those are typically mixed bag hunts. We release chucker as well as quail. We do have a native population of quail as well on the property, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And then every now and again we run across a pheasant when we're out there, and those are out there in the landscape as a part of as kind of leftovers, typically from our pheasant shoots that we do as well. So we've got a walk-up hunt, a pheasant shoot, which is anywhere from 12 to 24 people. And then we also offer a line hunt for those that are kind of in between their numbers. If you've got 6 people, maybe up to 12, and you're not going to fit on a pheasant shoot, so to speak, and it's a little bit more than we would be comfortable with on a typical walk-up. We'll do a line hunt, and I'm sure if you've hunted in uplands much, you kind of understand that, especially
Sure.
if you go to Kansas and you got your line and you'll have your blockers. Well, this is just the line. There's no blockers, so we're all walking through the pasture. So
Love it. Well, tell me about the the thing that got you into that, and why you like doing that kind of thing so much.
Well, I grew up in West Texas in Odessa, Midland, Odessa area, and it was big oil patch country,
Yeah.
big prairie. And, my first incident with quail, my family had a little land outside of town, and we were out there, and, being the time that it was, the 80s, I was, allowed to just roam and roam and roam. And so I roamed the prairies with my BB gun, and I tell this story often that, I had a moment where I was trying to shoot a sparrow off a fence post, and I'm trying to get as close as I can, and then all of a sudden the ground just erupted around me. It's funny, I get chills telling the story still, and I'm like, what the heck? It just scared me. And I told my dad about it later on. I said, Dad, I don't know what happened. He's like, oh, those are quail, and they end up being bobwhite quail, and that kind of started to set the hook. And from that point on, we would run around, and we had blue quail out there as well, and some bobwhites, not many bobwhite, but mostly blue quail, and you'll see those suckers running, and it's just roaming the pastures, and that's just the type of hunting that I got into, and it seemed to fit well with my ADHD. I don't sit still very well. I can't do this, the deer stand hunting.
Yeah,
I've got to be moving.
We're going to form a club, by the way, all of us with that.
Yeah. So, that's how it started. And, hunting has always kind of been a part of our life. My father didn't do a whole lot of it, which is interesting. That, I was just left to, and this may sound bad, but it's not. It's a wonderful thing. It's just left to my own devices out in the pastures, and it's a great thing. You learn a lot, and my love of the outdoors and bird hunting especially stemmed from that.
I love it. And interesting, you too mentioned certain aspects of blue quail hunting that will vex or frustrate a lot of us. And I finally at the SHOT Show this year, I was talking with somebody about blues, and they finally said what you think everybody wants to say but won't, and that is, I hate those suckers.
They're a tough bird. We go out to West Texas still, out near Alpine, about once a year probably, I would say we average. And just to get beat up by those things.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. it's a fun hunt. I found, and this is not a derogatory phrase about bird dogs, but I found that we actually see the birds far faster and more often than the dogs are going to find them. Now,
Sure.
they'll find the singles really, really well, but man, we'll see them. Oh, let's get around. You're running, and I currently have a 16 gauge. It's in the process of being completely refab, new stock, new metal, like everything, and it's going to be my pheasant and blue quail gun, because those are some tough birds. I would put them up against the pheasant, both in terms of toughness and in terms of speed. You don't really know how fast those little legs are going until we had a situation a couple of years ago where we were going along and all of a sudden a single quail jumps up in front of me and starts running away from me. And I called over my cocker, and he finally saw it and started running after it. And he was barely, full speed, barely catching this thing.
I believe
barely.
it. Yeah.
And the second he got within 20 feet of that bird, obviously it took to wing and left him behind. But that was the first idea that I got of how fast they actually are, because even though it's a little cocker, they can move. They can really move. So to see that cocker not just be able to catch this bird was shocking. And it kind of gave me a little sense of, you have a relatable moment to see how fast they are.
Yeah.
So,
that in a nutshell, folks, if you haven't hunted blues, that's what it is. And it's no wonder everybody kind of, I don't know what they have for those birds, but it's not admiration. It's the desire for revenge, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're right.
But you mentioned something real interesting. Number one, again, coming from the SHOT Show recently, I didn't see a lot of 16s, but I talked to a couple people about 16 gauge. And so you said you like it as a pheasant gun and you're going to use it for blues too, which are also called scale quail.
Yep.
Is it because you could have more pellets than a 20 and you can reach out and touch them a little bit more efficiently? What's the deal on that?
I shoot a 28 gauge mainly. And that's actually, other than the 16, that's all I shoot.
Yeah.
And my feeling on it, and I know this may have some controversy behind it, but my feeling is that a 28 gauge is a better 20. I know that's going to probably catch some flack, just because of obviously it's a little bit more restricted, but you get the same amount of lead flying out there, 3/4 of an ounce of shot. My feeling on the 16 gauge is that it's a better 12 because it's just a little bit more restricted, same amount of lead. So that's the idea there that, I've hunted blue quail with my 28 gauge, and I have, and I can find 1 ounce shot for those things, but man, so that's the reason for that being the pheasant and blue quail gun, just to be able to have a little bit more lead on them than I would, and it to get downrange a little bit easier. Yeah.
Well, all logical rationale. Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the bobwhite hunting on your place, because you know that better than most of us. Tell me what a typical bobwhite hunt entails for you. The dog style, the dog breeds, the country you're looking at, all of that.
So the way we will run a walk-up hunt is, first and foremost, let me kind of go back. So when you come to our place, while we do have a preserve license and birds are released, being the lovers of wild bird hunts and big open prairie hunts that we are, we strive extremely hard to mimic and put you in a situation that is as real and wild as it can be. So not that I would knock other preserves. I've done that before. But we're, on I'll just say a typical preserve, not all, you may be in a, 40 or 50 or 70 acre pasture and, just chasing singles for a couple hours. And that's fine. I've done it. Love it. In our place, like I said, we do strive to make that a little bit more wild and realistic. And when we're hunting, we're chasing coveys, and our releases out there are such that they're seasonal, monthly, and weekly releases. So when we're finding birds, you're going to run across an occasional single, but you're going to run across a covey, and then we're busting the covey, and then we're following it up and going after the single. So that's what we try to do very, 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 very much. I think we do a really good job of it. And our land is such that it allows us to do that. Obviously, we're fortunate enough to have, in any single course that you may be hunting with us. I think our smallest course is 100 acres, and our largest course that you'll hunt is 250 acres. And the main reason it's not larger than that is just that, our timed hunts, for a morning hunt, we're going to be out there 2.5, 3 hours. You just can't cover more than that.
Sure.
In that time, and that's just a factor of time. So, but that's what we do for our walk-up hunts. We do use pointing breeds, to find the birds, and then we always have a little cocker or a retrieving breed with us, a flusher that we'll send in for the flush, and it gets the birds going all over the place, and here we go.
So, I've never really asked about this in a long time, but number one, I remember when cockers started replacing Labradors for that job. Mm-hmm. You got to train for that. Both dogs need to understand certain rules about how they're going to comport themselves in the field. Do you keep what does your cocker do for most of the hunt?
Well, our cockers are on what we call a soft heel. Yeah. Now, a hard heel would be, right there literally at our heel as we're walking. A soft heel for me is they're allowed to kind of wander around within about a 5-yard radius. Yeah. And those little cockers, they're so smart. They virtually train themselves. Mm-hmm. But as long as you've got a really good a recall, you've got a soft heel where they're going to stay with you, and then you've got a really good release. Once you get those, you're going to be hunting in a pointing breed situation like what we do. So, our dogs are, when a dog goes on point, once we get through a couple of seasons, or actually probably less than one season, if I'm being honest about it, with the cockers, they're so smart, they will start to realize that when they see a pointer on point, they're going to sit down. They'll start to realize, hey, okay, let me go find John. Let me go find my boss. And they'll come back to you, or they'll sit down and wait till they're released. So that allows us to get our clients and our hunters in a good formation and to talk about where we are, because we do have a lot of undulation and elevation change out there. So there's a lot of situations we find ourselves looking, hey, we're pointing up a hill. Those birds get up. If they're going up that hill, that bird needs to be really high for it to be a safe shot. So, having that, a point, having a flusher that we can send in there, get everyone in position, it makes for better shooting, more safe shooting is a big factor for us.
Well, that was the first reason people started using flushing breeds at all. Mm-hmm. And rather than have John walk in and fly the bird and everybody shooting in his general direction, let's use something a little bit shorter. How do the pointing dogs relate to the cocker? What's your expectation in terms of them as the little dog comes blazing past?
Well, our expectation is such that it's in theory and then in practice.
Oh, right? That's why I asked it the way I did.
They can be very, very different, as I'm sure you're aware of. Yeah. And we all have our dogs, and they all have their own little quirks, and we learn to live with them, or we try to get it out of them, and we just go that way. So our pointing dogs, now it depends. If the dog has been trained to retrieve a lot, like I have a Griffon. Yeah. His name is Biscuit. The retrieve is his reward for finding that bird. Yeah. And when you got a little flusher coming in there and flushing, and going to get the retrieve, he's not always too happy about it. So it takes a little effort to keep them doing their own thing. Ideally, and this is where we are with most of our pointers, and there's a couple of factors of why, but we want them to find the birds, and we want them to stay on point until they're released. So flusher comes in, flushes the birds, they're just standing there until they're released. 2 reasons. Number 1, we have that flusher on a soft heel, and then we send him in for the flush, and then he goes and retrieves. Well, that flusher is not running all over the place, quartering back and forth like you might do with a flushing breed out in the prairies of, Kansas chasing pheasants.
Yeah.
He's saving energy. The flip side of that is when that pointer is finding birds and then not having to go full sprint after a retrieve and then come back, and then they're saving energy as well. So our dogs' energy levels and longevity seems to expand quite a bit, and that's the main reason, especially when down here in Texas it's gonna be 72 degrees today. We got to think about that. So saving that, it's easier on them from a heat perspective. It's better for the dog in the long run.
Makes sense.
Like I said, not all the dogs like it, but that's what we strive to do.
Well, speaking of that sort of thing, and again, you're probably more expert at warm weather hunting with dogs than a lot of people. Do you do anything else, either preseason, during the season, in the field, after a hunt? How do you keep care of your dogs so that they don't overheat?
Well, when it is hot, we are always going to hunt very, very close to water, whether that's a creek and a draw, or we may be hunting somewhere close to a windmill. That way we can just go and come back. If it happens to be a very hot day, like today, 72, that's really warm for dogs.
Yeah, it is.
Running in 40 and 30s for the last couple of weeks. We will typically make smaller individual segments of the hunt. We'll call it a loop. We'll go out 15 minutes, coming back, get them in the water, everybody gets the water, and everybody kind of likes that. And then you go back out again, and you come back. Whereas on a nice cool day, we may hunt for an hour and a half straight. Come back, have a little snack in the field, some waters, let the dogs rest up. If we need to change one out, we can, and then go back out for another hour and a half. And that's just how that would work. Now, when we're hunting around creeks and all that, obviously the dogs are just jumping in whenever they want. But you have to manage it. And, managing it from a perspective of the dogs knowing their roles, not chasing after everything, calling dogs back, I guess you could say just good, solid dog handling takes care of a lot of it. But like I said, if you're running, pointers and, they're retrieving and they're doing all of that, well, that's a lot of energy they're going to expend when they don't necessarily have to. And I was visiting with George Hickox, I think it was last year, actually, and we were talking about pointers, and he was asking, he said, well, he goes, do you want them to retrieve if I send you some dogs? I'm like, no. I said, we got the cockers. He said, good, because we're not even training our pointers to do that anymore, because we train the cockers. And,
I'll be darned.
He said it takes a whole month off of training.
Oh, I bet.
Get those pointers to find the birds, shoot, they stay there till they're released, and then they go hunt and find some more birds. He says it's a month less of training for those dogs. Well,
I got to call George and get him back on the podcast, because that in itself is something I want to learn more about. Yeah. Hey, that is Jon Hubble with Premier Wingshooting in Texas. I'm Scott Linden. This is the what is this? The Upland Nation podcast. John, you'll be right back, and I will make a couple commercial messages, including this one for landtrust.com. Just had a great conversation. We're working on another trip right now for early season next year. Yeah, Montana again. And let me tell you, the conversation went this way. Why people like landtrust.com. You want one good day or one good week in a place that's far away? You don't know anything about that area? Well, Land Trust has done all the legwork for you. You can basically rent a day on a private piece of property to hunt whatever you're looking for. You can search their website at landtrust.com for any kind of hunting, well, and any kind of angling for that matter, and then pick your spot, book a day, book 2 days, 5 days. A lot of those places have camping right on the site. It's yours. It's nobody else's. You and your dog and your friends or family can get out there and explore a private piece of property all by yourself, knowing with confidence the place has been vetted for you by the landtrust.com team. Yeah, learn more, shop around, create a free account at landtrust.com. And of course, you want to shoot well when you get there, so get yourself over to TrulockChokes.com. Had a great conversation with Scott Trulock just recently at the SHOT Show, and boy, have they got some interesting things coming down the pipeline. Don't forget to sign up for their email notifications. They've always got a sale cooking or some other sort of promotion. You can almost always find a reason to buy a choke tube or a new set of choke tubes, but beyond all that, the bottom line is they offer a lifetime warranty and a satisfaction guarantee. Yeah, if you're looking for better shooting, it starts with better chokes. It's all at TrulockChokes.com. And welcome back, Jon Hubble, Premier Wingshooting out there in Texas. One of my favorite places that I've never hunted. How's that? John, we've talked a little bit about dogs. We talked a little bit about your terrain, but I'm intrigued just a little bit. You mentioned you have some oak trees out there, and I just want you to describe the terrain where you're hunting those quail. Just give us, literally walk us around out there and describe what it looks like for a classic Texas quail hunt.
So we're at our place. We're really fortunate to have quite a bit of elevation change, and we sit up on one of the highest places in the county, and we're up high. And as you walk through, if you're walking through the middle of the pasture, or south pasture should I say, you're looking down into big draws and where everything drains off and down to the creek, and then obviously on down into the river about half a mile away. So that is our typical place here. We've got oak mott's here. It's a very much what you would call a post-oak savanna, where you've got 90 to 95% native grasses and then stands of oaks or oak mott's, here and there, depending on where it may be. So that's what our place looks like. And it's not typical for Texas any longer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Out towards west, you got a lot of mesquite prairies.
Mm-hmm.
And in our area, what our place looks like, if you look at it, you're going to go, oh man, it looks just like prairie chicken country. And the interesting whole sad fact of that is prairie chickens, their habitat used to be from, I want to say, South Dakota all the way down to our Gulf Coast.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
With the encroachment of brush and trees and the lack of prescribed burning, all of that has changed, and they're not here anymore. So, we give that little history lesson when we're out on all of our hunts. We typically think of our hunts and strive in our hunts to make them educational adventures. So you're going to get a lot of education while we're out having a good adventure on our place.
Well, it really does fascinate me for that reason, among others. It's almost I guess I'd call it an ecological artifact for Texas, at least. We all see that King Ranch country, and think that's where all the quail hunting takes place, is on those mesquite plains. Yep. And that sort of thing. But there is some real habitat still around out there. There is, and there's South Texas, which is what you're talking about, the King Ranch. And then there is North Texas, which is another stronghold of quail. And that is, our place is at the kind of south corridor, south border of what they call Quail, the Quail Alley up there. Yeah. Which kind of leads its way from our place up to North Texas, past the Red River and into Oklahoma. So there's still quite a few numbers up there, and the habitat is in a shape that provides
good area for quail, and it's changing, but it's still decent. So
cool. Tell me about you talked about educating people to the area and to the hunting out there. What are some of the things that you frequently have to bring up to your hunters when you're in the field, whether it's shooting tips or anything else?
It's interesting. There's a couple of things that seem to bring themselves up naturally throughout a hunt, and one is dog scenting conditions. If we start off on a hunt and we see that we'll usually put one dog down and we'll trade him out or add another one or whatever we may do depending on how hot it is and scenting condition. Well, if we're out there and we see that the dog is bumping birds or getting right up on them before they're able to establish a point, then obviously we start to realize, hey, scenting conditions are bad. We want to put a couple of dogs, maybe three pointing breeds down at once, just to make sure we're covering. Whereas, on a good scenting condition day, my best dog, Deuce, is a setter. His nose is incredible. He will literally lock up on a single pigeon at 40 yards. And, that's incredible. So, but there's a vast difference between wonderful scenting conditions that allows that to happen and super dry, no wind conditions where they may not catch a scent until they're, 5 yards away, and that can blow a lot of birds out really quickly. So that's one thing we talk about that, and with our undulation, how the scent may be traveling up or maybe traveling down, and if you see things you start to learn. One of the main things that come up, dog will be on point, but we're facing down a hill with a wind coming into our face, and not always, but I want to say 75% of the time, that bird is going to be farther down that hill than you anticipate because of the way the wind comes, hits, swirls up, and then comes back down. So that's we talk about the dogs and what they're doing, and that works. As far as shooting is concerned, what I see, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, when we're rushing a shot, most misses are high. And so that's what I tell people. It's just like in golf. You play for the bad, and so here, if you're going to, if you're not quite shouldering that stock up high enough, maybe just keep the beat a little low and see how that works out. And that's the miss 90% of the time. As a matter of fact, I don't recall a low miss.
Oh, you haven't seen my TV show.
So just shooting things like that. Talking about foot position and getting your feet into a good position to make a shot, or what we call where you're going back against your lead hand. So for my purpose, I shoot right-handed, so my left hand, if I'm swiveling back, we call that getting screwed into the ground more times than not, because you can't make that shot unless your feet are moving. And so those are the types of tips we typically come into with our shooters and our hunters, as well as, talking about safety and, hey, where's your area of shot versus your partner's area of shot, and, what's safe and what's not. And that's what typically happens out there as far as our tips are concerned.
Do you, is there a common mistake we all make when we're hunting with a guide that maybe you can flag for us so that we don't embarrass ourselves?
The one thing that I see that comes up is just I got two things. One is just you have to be not only laser focused on the bird, but at the same time you have to have a peripheral focus or awareness.
Yeah.
So you got to see that, because every now and again you'll see somebody make a shot and say, whoa, that's a little low. And we always tell people, hey, don't thread the needle. You don't have to get that bird, because I can guarantee you we're going to find more birds.
Yeah.
It's not, and very, very realistically, it's life and death. So we see that. The other thing, we get people come out and they will not take a shot. It's like, oh, you should have taken that shot. Hey, I'm gonna applaud you. Thank you for thinking safety first. That is wonderful. Let's go find some more birds. But the only other thing that I if you're an experienced hunter, and this is where I hope I don't make too many people angry with this, but this is just what we've noticed. The beginning hunters, the people who come out, we just finished a Ladies Upland 101 weekend a couple of weekends ago. They're the safest shooters out there. Yes, there's a little concern and worry about new hunters and new shooters, but it pales into comparison to the experienced shooters who come out. And what I tend to see is the more you shoot, the more you think you may be able to thread a needle. Yeah. And I can make that shot. Well, no, you may make it, but you might put a couple of pellets into the dog. So let's just not think that way. So there's always another bird. Always. There's not always another dog. Yep. At least for me. And, that's, if you're going out to hunt somewhere, hey, we tell people this when we go on our hunts. Does everyone in our group have permission to rib everyone else and to get on everyone else? And we say that because if you're the kind of person who, may get upset at somebody telling you what you've done wrong, then we need to think about whether or not you're going in the field. So we want everyone to give permission to really get on somebody if they do something bad, and we want everyone to give permission to accept that. And we find that makes a really good hunt. Yeah, it starts off in a lighthearted way, but if you make if you're out with me, Scott, and I see you make a horrible shot that endangers something, I'm going to get all over you. And if that upsets your ego, then I'm sorry, but maybe we shouldn't be hunting together. It's just, you got to be able to do that. And I know sometimes it's difficult, but we all have to set our egos aside and say, hey, you're absolutely right. Won't happen again. I'm so sorry that happened, because it could be life and death. And it is.
Yeah, and it's funny, to talk to a lot of people like you, and everyone's got a story about the guy they basically kicked off the hunt. Mm-hmm. Have you got one?
No, we've been pretty fortunate. Actually, we've been very fortunate. We never had dog shot that we're aware of. The worst I've had was a person made a couple of low shots and said, look, you've made 2 low shots in a row, or you made 2 poor decisions on shooting. If that happens again, we're putting your gun up and you're just taking photographs for the rest of the hunt. Yeah. But it wasn't bad. I've never had to kick anyone off. Thank goodness. Yeah. But we also set the stage and the expectations very well up front. Literally, that is our conversation. Does everyone here give everyone else permission to give you, Yeah. if you're doing something wrong? And everyone's like, yes. Okay, great. And it's like, hey, I get it. If you're a hot-headed person and well, you can hang out at quail camp and we'll go hunt. We'll come back and share our food with you.
I usually start with this in the conversation. I can't believe I didn't start with you because we got so much in common, including ugly dogs. But what is it about a bird hunt that really gets your juices flowing?
At the expense of sounding so cliche, and I think you know where this is going, mm-hmm. It's about the dogs. Mm-hmm. But not just for the dogs. For my purposes, I get a lot of gratification out of teaching someone, getting someone into the uplands, letting them see what the dogs are about, seeing someone's first bird on the flush, seeing that fire get lit in someone for something I think it's just in our nature to do these things. And I think people discover that about themselves when they're out in the field with a dog. I mean, how long has our history with dogs been? Mm-hmm. Thousands of years, so it's interesting to see that. And that's kind of what gets it going for us is watching fathers and sons and husbands and wives and fathers and daughters and, moms and sons, all of the various setups there come out and watching them get what's going on. And it's just kind of a primal feeling. I mean, we're out hunting with dogs, and we've been doing this. I think it's in our DNA at some point, right? You've learned this, dogs learn this, and we work together, and that's how it works.
Yeah, I can't top that. Jon Hubble with Premier Wingshooting. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. Jon, let's get practical on a few things in the field. How are you, or even before, after, during the off season? Are you managing your dog's feet in any way? You're not in the same country as the poor schmoes who have to deal with sandburrs, for example. But are you handling them? Do you toughen them up anyway? And what do you do about nails, for example?
We trim nails, obviously, but I find if you're running them enough, that those tend to take care of themselves. I myself get up most mornings at 4 a.m. here in my house, and my hunting dogs are my family dogs as well. So when I get up in the morning and I go for a run, one of them's going with me. I don't take them all at the same time. But, I'll switch off days. But we're running on asphalt through the neighborhood and all of that, and that keeps their feet pretty well tough. Now, sometimes when we get into some areas, there's some rocks and things like that in our place, we'll need to think about that. Or if we're hunting somewhere else in the state, think about that a little bit, maybe booting them up. But I think if you just keep them out running, just keep them doing what they're doing. And I made the mistake this over 2 years ago at my house, my dog run, it's an AstroTurf dog run. It's so great for the dog. It's going to look nice. I'm not going to tear it up. It's all that. Well, the unforeseen circumstance of that, or consequence, should I say, is their feet are softer now. They're not running around the backyard like they were once, and so I have to keep that in mind and at the forefront of my training. And like, okay, hey, you'll have to go run with me every single day, one of you. So they're getting a couple runs a week on hard old asphalt, and and that keeps them pretty well. But I had to learn that lesson the hard way. Is summertime here, which is up until October. Essentially, unless you're running at 4:30 in the morning, you're not running. And at 4:30 in the morning in the summertime here, it's 80 degrees. So you got to think about that. So the first year I had the AstroTurf dog run, I didn't think about that as much. And that last month leading into season didn't get out to do our daily runs, and we had some feet issues. So, you have to think about that and just be prepared. Yeah.
Keep an eye on them and check them once in a while. I'm amazed at how quickly my one dog, knock wood, what would I call it? The geography of his pads change by the week. I can look at them and they're nice and smooth. There's no indentations. There's no cracks. There's no tears, knock wood. But a week later, the same foot will have a crack going up the middle, and it will have a little gouge out of one side. And it's not just from running on rough country. Those pads are like our hands. Yep. We're working them, flexing them all day.
Yes.
So keeping an eye on those. You're absolutely right. What about gear? You got when you're out in the field or when you're training a dog, what tool, if you will, whether it's care or training or constraining or whatever for your dog, what have you got that maybe we've never thought of bringing with us or buying?
Well, so I'm a typical guide. I have a couple fairly substantial packs. They pack in a lot of water, and that's a main concern for us. Obviously, make sure we have plenty of water on us while we're hunting. I run the Garmin Alpha collars with the GPS and the stimulation as well.
Yeah.
As far as something that maybe not many people think of, I know there's some boots that you can buy out there for feet, kind of going back to that.
Yeah.
But what we end up using is more than anything is motorcycle inner tubes.
You know, that is such a Texas idea. I don't think I've seen it anywhere else, but explain to everybody how this works, because everybody needs to have a tool like this in their vest.
You're exactly right. And they're inexpensive. And that was kind of the main thing for us, is I would buy these shoes and then, put them on the dog and, $50, a set. Then all of a sudden they come out and they're missing one. Okay, great.
Or more.
Or more, exactly. So we started thinking about that. And so for the inner tube, and if you go to a motorcycle shop, more times than not, they're going to have old ones that they've removed, and they'll give them to you.
Yeah.
But you would literally cut the inner tube into sections that are about, I would say 6 to 7 inches long.
Yeah.
You're going to slice one end of it, kind of perpendicular to or parallel with the tube or the little segment. You're going to tape that up around their ankle, just below that first nub on the back of their leg.
Yeah.
And then you're going to kind of make an anchor tape, like taping your ankle. You're going to tape it to the back, and then you're going to take it to the front, and the front part is left open.
Yeah.
Drains water. They don't really come off.
Sand falls out.
Sand falls out. Grass falls out. Everything falls out, and they've got an extra layer of protection. And they're cheap. You can change them out really, really quickly, and you can carry them in your pack. I mean, you carry a set of 4, and it might take up an inch or 2 of space, inch of space by 6 inches long. It's just nothing. So
of course,
easy to.
Yeah. The key is bring your duct tape along with you, because that's critical. So keep it in the vest alongside that stuff. And I just had an inspiration. If you're looking at that tube, what you're cutting is kind of a V-shaped notch, but it's nice and long.
You're exactly right.
So that when you get when you snake that foot through there, you get it up there over what I think is called the carpal pad.
Yes.
Then you kind of close it. You can adjust the top of it that way by folding the notch over itself. Then you get a good fit in it. And if it's over the carpal pad, then it stays on a little bit longer. But you've seen it and I've seen it. We do the same thing, but we don't even go that far. We just use duct tape. And we'll be hunting a canyon we hunted a year ago or 5 years ago, and there on the ground is one of those duct tape dog boots. And I just laugh because, darn, I lost a 3 cents worth of dog boot.
Well, and I've done that too in the past, and I'm not sure on yours, but basically you just put the duct tape down, put their paw on top of it, cross it over the top, kind of like a Roman sandal, and then back up and around the ankle. And at that point, anything helps with those pads.
Yeah.
Like anything helps. So that's great, and that's inexpensive, and that's something that anybody can do.
Yep. Well, that's really useful, and you probably got the same kind of a thing for yourself or your clients when you're guiding. You carry anything in your vest besides a granola bar that you can share out with them, or maybe some Angus beef jerky, since it's so handy. What's in your vest that we may not be carrying?
So in my vest, I'm going to have forceps. Mm-hmm. I will also have just some eye wash in there. I don't carry a lot as far as dog aid, in that there's always in the truck or in the buggy, and we're not usually too terribly far. Now, if we're on a wild bird hunt, it might be a little bit different. But the other thing that I carry a lot, and there is now, if you get online, you can find it. There is now a porcupine quill jig.
Yeah.
And if you've ever had a dog get into some porcupines out in West Texas, and it was a little cocker, and it took me and my buddy who we were hunting with to hold this dog down. He had a dowel in his pack, just a 1-inch wooden dowel.
Yeah.
And he had a rope around it, and we were shoving that thing in its mouth and trying to hold him down and pull quills at the same time. And literally, 30-pound dog took 2 grown men holding him down with that down. Like, man, there's got to be a better way. And I found that jig, and it just goes in there and it straps around the back of their head, and then you kind of start unscrewing it, and it pulls out and pulls open the mouth and makes it real easy. So I carry that as well. Other than that, water,
Yep.
and obviously a short lead in case I've got to,
Yeah.
put a dog on a lead to get them out of there or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's about it. I do carry some snake gaiters
Yeah.
just in case, but they're just always in there. It's just the kind of this place that's where they live. It's not that I always need them, but I know where they are. If I ever need them, I need to throw them on if we can. But we don't hunt, we don't start hunting at our place until quail season actually starts, which is in the latter part of October. And the main reason is, we have a preserve license. So by law and by license, we can hunt year round, but we don't want to be there when the snakes are out. So we kind of wait till they go to bed, and then we finish before they come out.
No one's going to argue that one. That's great. Well, we could go on, and we will. Maybe next time in person, maybe it'll be down there. In the meanwhile, if people want to learn more about you and your operation, PremierWingshooting.com is where we do it. Am I correct there?
That is correct, yes.
Great. Jon Hubble is his name. He's the outfitter guide, Orvis endorsed, knows his stuff, and wow, it sounds like some pretty cool country down there. Hey, sure enjoyed this. Thanks so much, Jon, for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. And don't you go away, because we're still working on that Handle It segment, which I think fits perfectly into what we've just talked about. Long nails mean broken toes. Yeah, I'll explain all that in just a moment. First off, one of the joys of going to the SHOT Show, and I'm really lucky, and I thank the National Shooting Sports Foundation, number one, for doing such a great job organizing it for so long. And number two, for having me as part of their team. But I was, hanging around, talking to some Bulgarians, sipping a single malt, and then got to talking about casinos in Cleveland and the old days. No, I won't go there. And who walks past? Larry Potterfield. Yeah, MidwayUSA.com. Midway's founder, the guy, he's still the legend when it comes to gunsmithing and gun products. And as you might know, I'm making a bunch of videos for them, so get over there and watch some of those videos. And if you watched any of Larry's or you watched the TV shows he sponsors, he has a phrase, and it's a good one. It's a signature. So I run him down, we chat for a bit, and I lean over and whisper into his ear, Larry, it's my turn. Thanks for your business. And I can't say enough about the business that they provide for us. Whether it's hunting gear of various sorts, dog training gear, that is a constantly expanding category for them. You need ammo, that's where you're going to find it. From non-toxic of all sizes and shapes to target ammo for this time of year, MidwayUSA.com is where you're going to find it. Like I said, I've got more than a dozen dog-related videos over there now, so just go over there and then search for me, my name, or go to the ambassador page. Watch some of that stuff. And remember, while you're there, to sign up for their email or text notifications. You'll get 10% off your next order at MidwayUSA.com. And just got word from Fred Bohm over at sageandbreaker.com. Their firearms parts tray is back in stock. Yeah, that's how much demand there is for that kind of stuff. I get those notifications by email before everybody else hears it right here on the Upland Nation podcast. So if you want something, make sure you're on their email list, sageandbreaker.com. Lots of new products coming down the line. When they bring something back into stock, you're going to hear about it before everybody else. You'll get first crack at it. It's all at sageandbreaker.com. Yeah, I'm looking at all the things that will prepare us for next hunting season already. Pardon me for getting a little selfish in our discussion with Jon Hubble about things like that, but I got to thinking about one that I have learned the hard way, and I don't want you to, and that is the length of your dog's toenails. I probably ought to talk to somebody who knows more about physics, orthopedics, and mechanics of various sorts. But my theory is this: a long toenail is more of a lever to push a toe the wrong way when the dog lands on it while jumping off something or even just running. Do the math, you'll figure it out. It's a geometry problem, and you can all solve that. Bottom line, I need to keep my dog's nails shorter. I've been through the ringer on this stuff and have settled on a Dremel tool. Maybe most of you have too, and if you haven't, this message is for you. Get yourself one and teach your dog how to put up with it. Here's what I would suggest, and this goes for just about any other kind of grooming / doctoring you're doing on your dog. Put them up on the woe table. Make sure they're paying attention. Literally, just show your dog this device. Not while it's on, not first while it's on. Show it to him. Bring it closer. Maybe touch his feet, touch his nails. And if your dog objects to you holding his feet, well, you need to train that too. Then touch the Dremel tool business end, where the file is, if you will, the grinding wheel, to his toenails without running the thing. Get him used to all of that, and if you need to, offer up some treats, whatever you need. Acquaint that dog with that device. Then go way back, away from the table, maybe in another day, or do this over a week or two. Turn it on the low speed and let him get used to that noise. Bring it closer, closer. Start over again. Bringing the foot up, touching that thing gently to a toenail so that he gets used to everything in baby steps. It might save you a broken toe on your dog. That's what happened to Manny a while back. Lost him for much of a season that way. And I think that's why. Well, this edition of Handle It has been brought to you by ESPAmerica.com. I'm using my new ESP hearing protection devices in the field as well as at the range. The new digital technology vastly minimizes wind noise. You can still hear the birds get up. You can still hear your dog's collar tags jingling. If you got a bell or something like that, all the better. They're comfortable. They stay in because they're custom fit. Yeah, remember, hearing loss is permanent and cumulative. Learn more about all of that and all the choices for hearing protection devices at ESPAmerica.com. Had a great meeting recently with my friend Dave Fiedler at Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. And I hit on something that I really think is important. When you're shopping for a new shotgun, you need a guru. You need somebody who's objective, who knows his stuff, both on the range and in the field. Yeah, we talk dogs most of the time, but who also knows what kind of shotgun is going to serve you best. I want you to think of Dave as that guy. Call him anytime. Get the number at midvalleyclays.com. If you're thinking about or actively shopping for a shotgun, this guy's going to answer your questions. Yeah, he'd love to provide you one. But if it's not the right fit, he'll send you to the right place. midvalleyclays.com. Dave Fiedler, the shotgun guru I go to now, and he will be glad to counsel you as well. And when you're ready to pull the trigger, so to speak, they've got the gauge, the style, and the brand, including all the sub-gauges always in stock at midvalleyclays.com. Well, thank you, Jon Hubble, PremierWingshooting.com, for your practical and philosophical advice. Sure enjoyed that discussion. If you will, dear listener, please tell one person about the Upland Nation podcast. I would be most grateful. We are made possible by these folks, and if you can thank them by spending money at their websites, I'll be even more grateful. Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Pointer Shotguns, Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food, ESPAmerica.com, hearing protection devices, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, Trulock Choke Tubes, MidwayUSA.com, and LandTrust.com. Finally, if you want more information on any of these topics, there's always something going on at FindBirdHuntingSpots.com. And until I see you at the range or at Pheasant Fest, I'll see you there. I'm Scott Linden. Thanks for listening to the Upland Nation Podcast.